truth and reconciliation. The words can sound deceptively simple, but the work to heal gaping wounds left by the residential school system is anything but simple.
You have my word that if you have a story to tell us, we will hear it.
For 6 years, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission traveled to bear witness to the stories of thousands of survivors.
The sadness, the fear, and the anger.
We, the students, are not only suffered, but our families suffered.
It was an unprecedented undertaking to enter brutal truths into the record.
When you're 10 years old and you're abandoned, you don't know what to do.
This year marks 2 milestones in what came next. It's been a decade now since the TRC Chief Commissioner unveiled 94 calls to action, a blueprint for the way forward.
Reconciliation is not an Aboriginal problem. It is a Canadian problem. It involves all of us.
The creation of this day to honor survivors, their families, and communities was among them.
Where there's hatred, let us sow love.
This is the 5th National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. That name, those words, sit at the juncture of all that has happened and all that is yet to come. Most of those calls to action are not yet complete, some not even started. But as the resilience of survivors is honored and the children who never returned remembered, a persistent, tireless hope for a better future endures. And though he is no longer with us, so too does the message of the former Chief Commissioner.
Our country's history is complicated, but you don't make it better by ignoring it or glossing over it. You make it better by helping carry out the calls to action, by learning, by unlearning, and by resolving to do better.
This is Parliament Hill, the center of government in this country, transformed this afternoon into a hearth of sorts for remembrance and recognition on this, the annual commemorative gathering for the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. Thank you for being with us. Those of you here on the Hill, at home, to all the students watching from schools, this day is for you. It's always been about the kids. I'm Adrienne Arsenault with you to reflect on where we are in this country on that journey to reconciliation. There is clearly a lot still to do. There's also a lot that has been done. I'm thinking of the children who are growing up right now with this story, knowing the history of residential schools and the land they are on. We know more non-Indigenous people are choosing to learn Indigenous languages. That is fostering an understanding between neighbors, between cultures, that is really central to reconciliation. And I like to think it would give hope to the father of the man sitting next to me. Nigan Sinclair is an award-winning author, professor, commentator, and yes, the son of the former TRC Chief Commissioner you heard from earlier. Nigan, it can't be easy to hear and see images of your dad. Murray Sinclair Iban. Tell me why we use the word Iban when we talk about his name.
Oh, miigwech for having me today, Adrienne. It's a beautiful day, and certainly a day in which is something that we have never seen before on a day like this. And it's important that when we talk about today, we talk about understanding and we talk about learning from each other. And as Anishinaabe people, our culture, of course, Dad's culture, when somebody passes on, and Dad's been passed on for almost a year now, we as Anishinaabe people know that his spirit, as he separates from his vessel, his body, he travels for a year. And during that process of that year, he is faced with many challenges on the journey to what we say is the lodge in the west. And so when we say his name, we say Mijanagijik Iban. That's his traditional name, he who speaks of the pictures in the sky. And we add Iban at the end, Murray Sinclair Iban, because every time we say his name, he turns around and looks at us. And so when we say Iban, we say he's with the ancestors. And so he's certainly looking at us today. He'd be proud of us today, but we also need to tell him to keep going, keep spending time joining the ancestors.
If you imagine your dad, how do you think he would look on this day? Would he be like, I thought, Nigan, we'd be further ahead?
Well, certainly during his final years, he wanted us to move faster. He wanted the conversation not to be about why or debates around why, which happens all too often in this country, but to be talking about how. And in certain corners, we're doing a lot of important work. But I think certainly he was growing impatient and he was encouraging us along the journey. And I think a day like this, while we are seeing things we've never seen before, there's much more to do.
There always is more to do. Nigan will be with us throughout this day. We have lots to talk about, lots to watch. It is the duality of this day that, yes, it's important. It is also sometimes really rough for many people. And so what we're going to do is we're going to show you this number a few times. It's for the National Indian Residential School crisis line. You can reach help 24 hours a day by calling 1-866-925-4419. So right now, we are about 45 minutes or so from the start of the commemoration. Thousands of people are expected to be here this afternoon to honor the residential school survivors, pay tribute to the children who never made it home. Also joining us here on Parliament Hill today is CBC reporter Jackie McKay. Jackie, nice to see you.
Nice to see you, Adrienne. So I'm here with Terry Brown. She is a member of the Tahltan Nation and a survivor of residential school, and also part of the reason today is a holiday. So Terry, can you tell us a little bit about the work you did to make today a national day?
Well, what I did is, as a survivor, I presented to the Senate when they were considering declaring a holiday. They wanted to get more information about when they should have it or why it was important. So I went and presented to them on that. And this time of year, of course, is very special because this is a time of year we were sent off to the schools in September. And September is kind of a melancholy month for survivors. Yes. And anyways, big shout out to my Tahltan Nation. I miss you all and love you.
And tell us, why was it so important to have this recognized as a national day? And that was one of the calls to action in the TRC. So tell me a little bit about that.
It's important. This day is important because we never want to be forgotten. We don't want it to be forgotten that the schools happened, that people died there, many people died there, and to remember what we went through as survivors. We suffered a lot. There was a lot of abuse, sexual abuse and physical abuse and spiritual abuse, all of that. We don't want that to be forgotten, and we don't want it to happen again. So we want to remember the little children, those little souls that never made it home, that weren't loved, that never got to feel the embrace of their mother again, their families and community. We want that to be remembered, which is why I was also on the Monument Committee, so we could remember that. We don't want it to be forgotten. It's very special that we remember them.
Remembering is important today, of course, but it's also a day where we think about the action that still needs to be taken. What would you like to see in the future?
The big action that I would like to see is that to protect the children from further harm in the schools and in the social service system, because many children are still being taken. And a lot of it is still the effects of residential school. Families didn't know how to be families anymore. Communities didn't know how to be communities. And when we were very vulnerable, the children were taken. And I want to see that stopped because it's continuing. And this kind of legacy must stop. It's all part of the same system that started long ago with us. Yes.
Well, thank you so much. Terry Brown is a member of the Tahltan Nation and a residential school survivor. Back to you, Adrienne.
Jackie, thanks very much. This day is being marked in all kinds of ways all over the country, and in Brantford, Ontario, which is about an hour and a half southwest of Toronto, people are being invited inside what was once the longest running residential school in the country. Then it was called Mohawk Institute. Now it is the Woodland Cultural Center. That's a museum that is being officially unveiled today. As Lisa Shing explains, it is preserving the stories of those who survived and, of course, those who did not.
It was not a school, it was not an educational institution.
Doug George, taken from his family in the 60s at the age of 11. He remembers never having enough to eat, witnessing sexual abuse, being beaten.
There was a deep sense of apprehension and fear because if you didn't obey the rules, then corporal punishment was swift and it was brutal.
His story and those of 15,000 other children forced through its doors over 140 years are now preserved here.
Where you are today was our dining room.
After a $26 million renovation, it's opening for the first time as a museum, part of the Woodland Cultural Centre.
We can say what happened to us. This is our truth. This building will tell you the truth. It makes you realize how real and authentic that experience was when you're in the physical space where those atrocities happened.
And never be referred to as Indians again.
The exhibits include films and original furniture like this table showing children's scribbles underneath. These bricks, survivors and family members' names inscribed.
This is an integral part of Canadian history. It's just something that you can't just brush aside.
And Lisa Shing is at the Woodland Cultural Centre right now. Lisa, nice to see you.
Hi there, Adrienne. And Adrienne, hundreds of people have gathered here today to mark the opening ceremony that officially opens the former Mohawk Institute to the public and to the community. People have been lining up along the wall there to go through and take a tour and have a look at the exhibits. And these are lived experiences of the roughly 15,000 children that were forced to attend over its history. So right now, I'm joined by Rick Hill, who is the senior historian and curator for this massive project, this big undertaking. Rick, tell me about some of the priorities for you going into this.
Well, it was a difficult story to examine, so I tried to follow what the current survivors had to say. What happened to them here? What were the themes of their experiences? And then I dug into the historic record to try to find some evidence of that. But, you know, the school is over 140 years old, so you're not going to have witnesses explaining what happened throughout all time.
And what was that work like for you?
Well, it was both invigorating and frustrating at the same time, because part of me said, how come I don't know this? How come I have to learn this at my age? Our people in the community didn't talk about it. I found out some of my own relatives went there, and I didn't know their story. But it was also refreshing to find those stories that help us then explain who we are as a people, what happened to us collectively.
And some of the challenges of making this space as true to the time and those experiences of the children as possible. Can you tell me about that?
We approached it like the building was the biggest artifact you could find. The community decided to save the building, so we tried to let the building reveal its story. Hundreds of objects were found during the renovations that are telling in themselves. And then we tried to minimize the impact. We didn't want it to look like a museum. So we lightly put labels, we leaned them up against the wall, so you got this feeling you can still see the building behind the exhibit.
And can you speak to some of the exhibits that the public should see, a must-see?
Well, I think they should see it all or read it all and spend some time here, but in particular in the classroom, where we recreated what the desks were like, and then we put the words of survivors on the desk, so you get a sense of the power dynamics. And then when you visited the officer's room, the principal's room, you get to see this interesting contrast between maybe what kids' world is like and then what the stern world of the administrators was often.
What do you want the public to take away?
Well, we really want the public to think deeply about what does all this mean? How do such things happen? So this is really about truth and reconciliation. So we reveal the truth of this institution. We give you time to pause and reflect on that. And so those answers will come out of your thoughtful reflection of your experience here.
And for you, Rick, the significance of this museum space opening on Truth and Reconciliation Day.
Well, you know, I came to work here in 1973. I had no idea what the story was. It's taken me in my adult life to appreciate this fact. So on this day, I think there's no better place in which we contemplate the meaning of residential schools, but to be at one where then the local community and our curators and our historians have helped you to understand what took place here. So we've given you really reliable information to reflect on.
Thank you so much, Rick.
Okay. Thank you for
Adrienne, that was Rick Hill, who is the senior historian and curator on turning the former Mohawk Institute into a museum space for the public, the goal of which is to preserve those experiences so the public and people may go through and learn from those experiences, and also as a space of healing for the survivors.
Lisa, thank you to you and to Rick. And Nigan, just looking at that building there, I have a small sense of it. I met a man named Geronimo Henry there who showed me one of the windows when I went to see it. And he said, I stood at that window for over the course of 11 years, starting as a 6-year-old, waiting for my mom to come get me. And she never came. He said, I see that window, and I remember I cried at that window for 11 years. And I feel like when people look at that building, they will see it in different ways. How would you see it?
Well, certainly a lot of trauma, a lot of pain, but it's also a beautiful moment in which it is continually proof that it is the survivors who are remaking this country. It is the survivors who created the TRC and a day like this. And it's individuals who are taking what is the most painful chapter in our history, like Rick Hill. Congratulations, by the way, to Rick Hill for Order of Canada, just honored just a week ago in the Governor General House. And then I know students who are there from Mackenzie Collegiate Institute who are there right now, and they are seeing what has been a painful structure, a painful moment in our past, and changing it into something beautiful.
And you have also, as I understand it, if you want to tell it, you don't have to, a personal connection to it.
I mean, you know, the painful story of residential schools is oftentimes in our own families. My great-grandmother, when she unfortunately had to place my grandfather and my great-grandfather into residential school. And when that moment happened, she would come and visit them, and she wasn't allowed on the grounds. And so she would camp just outside the gate so that people could, that they could see her, and that they could see that she still loved them, and that she would often cook their favorite foods for them so that the smells could be able to, they could reach that, but they couldn't ever quite reach her. So that story hits home to the heart, and hearing that about residential schools. I have one in my neighborhood back in Winnipeg. It's very much a part of our lives and our identity today as Indigenous peoples, as Canadians.
There is something, I think, especially for kids in particular, to walk around a building that is a school. So like the exterior of it is recognizable to kids as a school, but to be able to sort of touch those bricks, for example, that you saw in Lisa's story, that are etched with the names of the kids who went there, as I understand it, is they were trying to go back and tell the history of that school. They relied on those bricks heavily to tell them of who attended and when, because some of the documents have disappeared. How much of an issue are the missing documents of these residential schools
Telling
still?
the story of residential schools is still taking place. The National Centre for Truth and Reconciliation is still searching for documents and still struggling with the federal government and provincial governments who have documents, churches who are still not releasing those. There are even documents in the Vatican that we're struggling to get to be able to tell the full story of not just what happened to children, but where are the children that were lost during those. And we hear oftentimes about searches at residential school sites for potential burial spaces and so on. You know, commemoration was one of the main thrusts of the TRC when it started. It was the survivors who paid for the TRC from their compensation. And what the survivors wanted to do is to be able to tell the fullest, most robust story possible of what happened, but then also to give us that knowledge to make sure that it never happened again. You heard the survivor just speak a minute ago, to make sure that every Canadian child mattered, that every single person in this country saw each other as human beings, and human beings that are valuable.
Okay, Nigan, thanks very much for that. It has now, as we've been saying, it's now been a decade since the Truth and Reconciliation Commission laid out those 94 calls to action aimed at addressing the legacy of residential schools and achieving reconciliation with First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. So why don't we take a closer look at the progress of those recommendations? Those 94 calls to action cover child welfare, education, language and culture, health, justice, and reconciliation. CBC News has been tracking progress on them through a project called Beyond 94. According to our analysis, 15 have been completed. The majority, 62, are considered works in progress. 17 haven't been started at all. Now, the Liberal government committed to implementing all 94 recommendations 10 years ago. Mandy Gilmasti is the current Minister of Indigenous Services, joins us now from Montreal. Thank you for that, Minister. We were just talking about these calls to action. We know that the government under Prime Minister Justin Trudeau promised to fully implement all 94 calls to action. Is the Carney government committed to implementing all 94?
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for having me, Wajek. This is a process. I can say that the majority of the actions have been launched. The Carney government is going to follow through with what has been done. I heard from the Prime Minister in his statement earlier today that this is a generational task. We have to remember that this is not something that can be completed in 1 year or 10 years. It is an initiative that's the responsibility of the government. It also requires many different partners to come to the table, so I'm looking forward to continuing that work.
Indeed. We've been talking a lot in this country, Minister, about projects of national interest, major projects being committed to by this government. And we see pipelines, we see mines, we see ports. But I'm curious, why not infrastructure, broadband, nursing stations on First Nations? Aren't those major infrastructure projects of a national interest too?
I think what has to be clarified with major projects is there are 5 criteria. One of the criteria for major projects is really that it contributes to the economy. And, that means large-scale projects that generate revenue. They also need to they have an additional requirement to attract investment because this is an investment process that we're trying to launch. So, yes, those things are critical. Infrastructure for the community, there's many components of development at the local level that need to be funded, but they are different.
Could you not make an argument that they would contribute to the economy greatly, certainly in the long term?
I think that there is a position when you're looking at it. There are 13 economies. Those are major economies in this country. First Nations communities have microeconomies. So there is the potential, I believe, for that spin-off component and the community doing the work of evaluating, what is the external processes that we can launch and how can we feed into these projects? That's one of the components that it's really the work of the community to come to the table and define that. At Indigenous Services Canada, we're willing to support them and do that work with them to be sure that whatever additional means they want to add on to a project, it is driven at the community level.
We talk a lot, Minister, about the calls to action, especially on this day. But to some of your points here, then those 94 calls to action don't represent the full scope of changes that need to happen. I think of the boil water advisories in Indigenous communities. I think 10 years ago, the Liberal government pledged to bring them down to 0 in 5 years. But the last time we looked, your ministry's own data shows 39 long-term drinking water advisories still in place, which looks like a broken promise.
I don't think, I'm evaluating it through the lens of process. There are a number of advisories that are still in place. And my last verification of the data was below 35, but I'll take you at 39. That means that there's a lot more work to be done at the community. We have to remember that boil advisories, there's many different types. There's some where the community had infrastructure put in because they don't have the necessary trained staff. They re-enter into a boil advisory process. There are some where they're still waiting for that critical infrastructure. At ESK, we're continuing to work with the communities to ensure that we are committed to this process. Myself personally, as a minister, I believe that this is the right path forward. Clearly undertaking over 140 different water process advisories, especially also during the past tumultuous years that we had in this country facing a pandemic. Of course, we're going to see a natural delay in some timelines, but the commitment still stands.
There's so much to ask you as a minister, as a politician. I am curious, on a personal level, who and what are you thinking of today?
Today I'm thinking of my late mother, Dorothy Gall. She is a residential school survivor from a school here in Quebec, Lettuc. My mother did share with me the legacy of the school that she attended. I was actually with her when former students were invited to demolish the school. So I got to share that time with her where she showed me where she lived in the dormitory. She shared stories with me. Some were hard to hear. She showed me where she hid in a closet. Some were, uplifting, where her and her friends had fun. It's a challenging part of somebody's life. I hope that people that are reflecting on the day today are really remembering that this legacy in Canadian history is not from 100 years ago. It's from this generation, this previous generation.
Yeah, there's a lot of very present memories. Those sound hard. Minister Galmasi, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Tanaskamton.
We are about half an hour out from the beginning of the national commemoration. That is happening here today. The plan is that it will run for around 90 minutes. It will include survivor stories, performances by First Nations, Inuit, and Métis artists, and you will see it presented in English, French, and Plains Cree. So the ceremony on Parliament Hill isn't the only one happening in Canada. All across the country, people are marking this the 5th annual National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. In Toronto, the day was marked with a sunrise ceremony at City Hall. There was a healing walk and powwow in Winnipeg to honor survivors and, of course, those who never made it home. And in Halifax, there was a packed event at the Mi'kmaq Native Friendship Center for people to come and to learn and talk about reconciliation. And so as we head to break, we hear from kids and teens about what reconciliation means to them. We'll be back in 2 minutes.
Reconciliation means to me that people have the right to be in their culture and do what they need to do. It means to care about other people. Back then, people were treated wrongly, and that shouldn't happen.
The role that kids and teens have when it comes to truth and reconciliation is to learn about the past, make sure that it's talked about enough, have difficult conversations, and make sure your voice is heard. We can make the world better if we just use our voice.
To, connect, talk, and just speak with one another, We have to build the community and start the conversation, or no one's ever gonna listen.
Kids play a huge role in truth and reconciliation because we hold the power to pass on that knowledge to continuing generations.
This important work of reconciliation is not a one-day affair. As we say, it will take us several generations. So my message to Canadians is this: today and every day, watch and listen to the stories of survivors, their families, and their communities.
Wise words spoken a few years ago, precisely on this day, on the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. That was in 2022. That was, of course, the former Chief Commissioner of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. November 4th will mark a year since he died. And as his son, Nigan, sitting here with me, explained earlier, in this moment, his dad's name is spoken with another word attached, Iban, meaning with the ancestors. So Justice Murray Sinclair Iban was in many ways both a very quiet man and a very loud one. And when he spoke, there is no doubt people listened.
I stand before you here, hopeful that we are at a threshold of a new era in this country.
That is a voice woven so tightly into the story of reconciliation that it can seem impossible to separate it out. But long before his time with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, he was already a change maker. An Anishinaabe from Peguis First Nation, he spent years working as a lawyer. He said he loved the courtroom, but was also met with prejudice.
He grabbed me by the arm and was going to lead me back to the cells, because he assumed the white guy was the lawyer.
He went on to become Manitoba's first Indigenous judge and to co-lead an inquiry into racism in Manitoba's justice system. Years later, after the TRC's final report was presented, he took on a new role, this time in the Red Chamber as a senator.
My ambition is to do all that I can in the lifetime that I have to bring about those changes that are needed for the future.
Many remembering him now for his wisdom, his kindness, and his relentless pursuit of reconciliation. Nigan, thank you for sharing your dad with us for all these years. I mean, you genuinely shared him with us the last time he was here. Last time, certainly I saw him, it was sort of on set on this day talking about it. You were in a remote in Winnipeg, you two teasing each other.
Yeah, I remember that. He wasn't feeling well. That was his actual last trip he ever took. And then he stayed at home with us. And one of the great gifts of that, although he certainly, his health declined over the next little while there until finally he passed a year ago. I got to spend time with him. You know, he loved this country so much. He loved Canadians. He loved Indigenous peoples. He loved being with people, sharing food, visiting, joking. You know, he loved joking. And he loved this country so much that I know that because he spent as much time with everybody here as he did with me. And I know he loved me, and so he must have loved this country a lot. And for a long time, that was frustrating for me, but it took me only when I became a father and when I got to spend time with my father that I realized how much deeply he loved the vision of the possibility that we could sit together and care for each other and look after each other's children.
You know, what he did listening to those thousands of stories, and he kept his promise that if you have a story, you will be heard. What did that take from him? Because I don't know that you can hear all of that and not lose a part of yourself.
Well, I would be lying if I didn't tell you that, you know, I slept with my father the last year of his life. And I spent time because, of course, we lost my mother just a few months before my father. And so I slept with him. I became his roommate. And I always called myself his big brother because I'd be like, take your medicine, time to eat, time to have a shower. And so with my father, one of the things that I got to witness is how hard hearing those stories was, because we're talking about children. We're talking about people, survivors that he met, where he spent time with. And it's hard to hear that, what happened to individuals who are so kind and generous and believe in the truth, and that they were not believed for many, many years. It's very, very hard to see that with someone you love so much, and see the night terrors, for example, that he had, or the kind of moments of nervousness and anxiety that we weren't moving fast enough. But I will tell you one thing, that he had tremendous hope in all of us. And he had this thing called the crooked finger, you know, and whenever Dad got serious, you saw it in the video there. And the crooked finger meant that I'm very serious and we got to get up. He'd always say, get up. And he's telling us all to get up now.
Look out for the crooked finger.
Yeah.
Listen, thank you very much. Just to bring people up to speed on what's happening here. things that you can feel sort of an energy shift here. That's because the Prime Minister has arrived. The Governor General is here as well. They're getting closer to the official start of the ceremony. There he is. You can see Prime Minister Mark Carney, Governor General Mary Simon, Whit Fraser is right there in the hat behind them. They are certainly meeting with elders. They are at a tent just away from us, just a few hundred meters. I can see them walking right behind us right now. Go ahead.
I mean, this is, I think, particular really importance to the Prime Minister. I mean, his father ran a residential school, and the Prime Minister, during the early stages of his run to become Prime Minister, had to answer difficult questions of some of the complicated things his father said. He, of course, distanced himself and said, "I'm not my father, and I commit to a further path of reconciliation, certainly different than what his father was engaged in." And I think this day is a particular moment in which the Prime Minister really, I'm very impressed that he showed up. I'm impressed that he's going to say a few words. He's issued a statement earlier because it is important that our leaders distance themselves from some of the difficult, complicated paths that we've been on and then commit to a new spirit, a new journey.
And how personal when you're talking about your family?
Oh, I actually, knowing people within the as he was running up for Prime Minister, I was texting him and saying, "You have to make a comment on this." I wrote columns on this in the Winnipeg Free Press, and I say, "You have to say something now. You cannot not say something because this is of personal interest and issue to you." And eventually the Prime Minister said something after, I think, a few nudges from some of us. So.
Was it enough, what he said?
Oh, absolutely. I think, none of us, and including myself, are our parents. We each have different work to do in this generation. I certainly am not my father. We may pick up some of the legacies of our parents, good, bad, great, ugly, but we each have work to do. And if I can go back to my father for a minute, he said, we have now shown you the mountain. Reconciliation is going to be about struggles and obstacles, but we must all do it together. We must help each other when we stumble, and when we get to the summit, we will see things that we've never seen before, even things that we thought we know, but we will see again for the first time.
All right, Nigan, thank you. As we keep an eye on the stage and we get close to the start of this, we're going to go talk to Jackie McKay, who is in the crowds. Hello, Jackie.
Hi there, Adrienne. So the crowd is filling up here, and I have with me Jackie Bouvier. She's a third-generation survivor of residential school, and she's Métis from Saskatchewan. How are you doing today?
I am doing great. I've been here since Saturday and doing different things. I attended Beauval Indian Residential School for 4 years, day school at the same place, and Algonquin boarding school.
And what are you thinking about today? How do you reflect on today?
I'm reflecting on my 2 baby sisters that are buried in an unmarked grave, and my angels. We're doing work to find them and put markings on the unmarked graves. 93 were detected there in August 24th. GPR work was done, and we believe 2 of them, by speaking to the elders and survivors, 2 of them are my baby sisters.
I'm so sorry to hear that story. Unfortunately, you're not the only person with a story like this.
Yes.
What do we do now to honor your family and to make up for the past as a country? What would you like to see done?
Just believe what is happening, and the truth is being told by all of us survivors. And it did happen, and they are there, and there's more GPR being done beside the graveyard in Beauval Residential School. I'll have a ceremony next year because they're doing the ground searches in the playground. So out of respect, we will not do the ceremony.
Things have changed a lot in the last couple of years. We never used to have this day. We used to not have people wearing orange shirts. How does it feel to see everybody here and to be, year after year attending the ceremony?
It feels wonderful. Feels wonderful. There's more and more people that understand, and we are there to tell, and it's part of my healing. Part of my healing. It feels so good to see people, and the classrooms know about it too. Yeah, feels good. And my angels are the 2 sisters. And my mother and my grandmother attended the same residential school as I did. Yeah. It was my mother's dying wish for us to find her babies.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. We really appreciate it. Adrienne, back to you.
Oh, Jackie, thank you. Yeah, her angels, her sisters. The goal of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission was to educate people about this very history, about these personal stories, about the legacy of this time in our country. As we've mentioned, it has been 10 years since the TRC published its 94 calls to actions, which were steps that were meant to set everyone on a path of reconciliation. The Commission heard testimonies from residential school survivors, documented meticulously all of their stories. And Ryan Moran oversaw what they called statement gathering for the TRC, was the first director of the National Centre for Truth and Reconciliation, and now he's Canada's inaugural Associate University Librarian of Reconciliation at the University of Victoria, which is where he joins us from now. So Ryan, thank you for that. How are you listening to these stories again? Because I would imagine hearing them the first time takes a toll on you.
Yeah, well, nice to be on the show here today, and nice to hear so many familiar voices. You know, these are tough days, and they're days also for celebration. And they're tough days because on days like this, we remember. We remember the past. We remember our families. Certainly for me, I remember thousands of survivors that we heard from coast to coast to coast across the country. And they were tough stories that we heard. They were very, very tough stories. But those tough stories were shared with a vision. They were shared with a purpose. And that purpose was to ensure that those schools could never, ever happen again, that kids were kept safe in Canada and really the world over. And so these days are filled full of mixed emotions. There's realities in both that hope and in that sorrow that is present.
When you're in the middle of an experience like that, Ryan, I don't know if you allow yourself to look ahead and imagine the world in a decade's time, but what do you make of where we are right now?
Well, I think we're on a journey. I think we're on a journey that is complicated. I think there are missteps along this journey where we see ourselves tripping and stumbling. I think we also see that there's countercurrents that are blowing here in Canada and also around the world. And I think that is why a day like this is so critically important. It's not just a day to remember the past, but to very much cast our eyes forward and think about what is the world that we want to create together. What is the Canada that we want to create together? And I know that what we heard so clearly through the TRC and through the thousands and thousands and thousands of people that shared with the Commission and afterwards is that there is a vision for a Canada that is fair, that is safe, that is just, that is equitable. And that is a beautiful vision. I really hope that we keep that vision for a better future in our heart and say, yes, we can. Yes, we can overcome this difficult past. And if we're going to do it, we're going to do it with the full involvement of Indigenous peoples.
I know, sometimes I think, Ryan, when we talk about this, we can speak. I'm not speaking to what you're saying, but broadly, we can all talk in generalities. And the number of calls to action, broad ambitions, and yet the truth is in the specifics. And I'm wondering, is there a project that you are most happy about, that you feel was a tangible act that you see looks like reconciliation to you?
Adrienne, I might answer the inverse of your question that you asked me, because I think when you ask about the specifics, there is a situation that is unfolding in Canada that maybe should give us reason for concern and reason for pause, and something that Mazina Gizek-Iban spoke of, and that is a forthcoming destruction of a lot of information in this country in 2027. In fact, arguably the best detail of the worst abuse that occurred in the residential schools is slated for destruction in September. So just, a little over 2 years, or a little under 2 years away. Now that is a very, very hard and difficult matter to talk about. It went all the way to the Supreme Court of Canada. But what it also tells us is that, well, A, the detail matters, and two, we're going to lose a lot of that detail in this country. And that's at a time when we're still just really beginning to understand what the truth of this entire situation that has unfolded is in Canada.
Can you help explain what you mean by the destruction of information for people who are trying to catch up here?
Yeah, thank you. You know, very, very early in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's mandate, Murray Sinclair Yvonne raised concern about what was going to happen to the records of what was called the independent assessment process, a process that ran parallel to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission that awarded compensation, but also detailed highly personal, highly confidential statements from residential school survivors for the purposes of assessing what they deserved for the serious sexual and physical abuse that they encountered. Despite the best efforts of the Commission, we were never able to resolve what would happen to those records without bringing the matter to the courts, and that worked its way all the way up through the courts, the Supreme Court, back down, and the Supreme Court did say that those records should be destroyed. There is a notice program. There is an option for survivors that want to preserve their testimony still that is available through the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation and other locations, but the vast majority of that information will get destroyed, and we will lose quite a vital set of information at a very tender and delicate time in our national journey towards truth and reconciliation.
I think that will surprise a lot of people. It took so much courage to offer those statements. It would be very hard to see them disappear. Thank you for that. That's Ryan Moran, who oversaw statement gathering for the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Thank you. As you can hear, we're getting very, very close. The ceremony about to start. We're waiting in particular to see something very special, which is the bentwood box.
Yeah, so the bentwood box is now out. For those of you who don't know, and what you're watching on the screen is the bentwood box that traveled with the national events of the TRC. Yes. It was gifted to survivors in order to accept and receive the gifts that the TRC was to receive. Not just statements, but also objects, gifts, things that would commemorate residential schools. It was also a place in which people, during the national observances, the official witnesses, they would also offer their statements into that so that they would be documented. It's a living box. It still is something. I was at a gathering the other day with it, and it was an opportunity for us to spend time. It's really an ancestor. It's a being that travels with reconciliation across the country.
Interesting. Okay. So I just want to give everyone another reminder here, Nigan, that there is support for anyone who feels like they need it, because as we watch this as observers, if you are in it and if it's been in your family and if you're affected, it can be disorienting, dizzying, incredibly depressing. You might need help. That is why the 24-hour National Indian Residential School Crisis Line exists. It can be reached at 1-866-925-4419. Now, we want to let you know that as you watch the ceremony, you won't be hearing from us unless we feel that it's absolutely necessary that we jump in. So you will experience this as we do. If you watch the bottom of your screen, you will see descriptions of who is speaking, what is being said. American Sign Language interpretation of ceremony is certainly available for the whole ceremony today. You can find it on cbcnews.ca and on CBC Gem. This official program is about to begin. We'll be here throughout. One thing you think we should watch for, Nigan?
I think that what you're going to watch for is you're going to see many different people who are involved with the National Center of Truth and Reconciliation. They just got a huge investment, plans for a new building. You're going to hear a lot of talk about that. You're also going to hear from survivors talking, continuing to tell the truth of what happened to residential schools. But I think if there's anything to watch for, it's the kind of measure of hope. You'll see a barometer today of where many people from across the country, from coast to coast to coast, feel around where reconciliation is at today. And you'll hear a lot of specifics, and you'll hear a lot of sort of tangible feelings around certain moments, like, for instance, what Ryan Moran spoke about just a minute ago. Reconciliation is still a struggle in this country, and we're still talking about why too much, not really about how. And I hope I hear some visions of how today.
Hope is an excellent word. Why don't we, I was just going to say we're just trying to figure out the precise timing for this to start. So as we try to determine that, I was just going to say also watch, I would think, for the memorial cloth.
Yeah,
because it is wrenching every time you see it.
Yeah, and you know, you can also see kind of the coalescing of different people from different walks of life. There was a photo op just a minute ago with the Prime Minister was in front. And you know, if there's anything that you ever see, we saw this during the papal visit, survivors walking up quickly wanting selfies with the Prime Minister. Right. And so it's a kind of interesting moment in which Canadians from many different walks of life come together. And seeing the memorial cloth is also very beautiful because it's a reminder of the children that were lost. But then how many more we have left to search for, because there are special gaps on that cloth to make sure that to include those children. And during the TRC events, there would often be empty chairs to recognize the children that were lost, tens of thousands that were sent to the schools, and we don't know what happened to them.
Yep, those lost little ones. This is all about them. It will always all be about them. Nigan, thank you very much. We're going to sit tight. Stay with us. Keep an eye on this. We will try our best not to interrupt. Indigenous languages will be fundamental to this program. It is important for them to be spoken, to be heard. The survivors have told us they want us to hear them in their language, so we won't be translating them. We expect that an English summary of what they said will be provided after they speak. So now here is a national commemorative gathering remembering the children. It is produced with the Aboriginal People's Television Network and the National Centre for Truth and Reconciliation. So do you remember when I said I wasn't going to interrupt? Well, I'm back. I'm sorry about that. And I'm back because, Nigan, we're still waiting for the Prime Minister to be seated, which will officially start this off. To your point.
And the Governor General, too, is here. Actually, I saw the Governor General shaking 100 different hands. And if there's anything you know about Governor General Mary Simon, and I've spent much time with her, is she wants to visit with everyone. And like my father, there's a famous story of my father where they were hoping for the hearing to start one time. We used to do this thing in Manitoba called the Aboriginal Justice Inquiry. And they couldn't get started at 9 a.m. because he would be having tea in the parking lot with the elders till 10:30.
And so he should. I'm not sure if that's what's happening. It's the benefit of being where we are that we can genuinely turn around and have a little look-see.
But you know, this is a really important day, I think, for Canadians. There was a Ledger poll that said that 1/3 of Canadians all participate on Orange Shirt Day. It's impossible to sort of track across the country how successful this day is becoming, but that would translate into about 14 million Canadians are wearing an orange shirt on today.
And you know, we haven't talked about Phyllis Webstad all day. We haven't talked about her yet.
Great documentary just came out about her just a few days ago.
Can we remind people, because while we sometimes call this Orange Shirt Day, it's not technically Orange Shirt Day. It's a National Day for Truth and Reconciliation and Orange Shirt Day. But the significance of the orange shirt is what?
So the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation comes out of the TRC Calls to Action number 80.
Yes.
And that follows what was happening for years before. Even as the TRC was doing its work in 2013, there was a movement led by Phyllis Webstad, who's a residential school survivor, a Shwepuk woman, who began to speak about her experience of having her orange shirt, which she was given to go to residential school with by her grandmother, and having it taken away by the staff there. She was given that shirt to recognize and remember home, and to always remember that she's loved from her ancestors, from her family, from the land itself. And this beautiful shirt was taken away, and she always felt shame and sadness as a result. And so when she began to wear an orange shirt and speak to people, there was a famous story of there was a few people in the audience started wearing an orange shirt, and she said, thank you so much. Thank you for hearing this story and for standing in solidarity with me. And then she came again, and there was 20 people, and there was 50 people. And soon enough, an entire auditorium was full. And Phyllis then turned to the audience and said, it's not enough that we just do this here. We have to educate this country. And they began to walk throughout the community. And soon enough, a province began to wear an orange shirt. And the TRC started to learn, and people wore them at the TRC gatherings. And now, as I said before, 14 million people, I think, today, according to the polls, are indicating that they would wear an orange shirt today. And about half of Canadians think the government needs to do more on reconciliation. I mean, we're talking about a movement that just cannot be stopped now, no matter about who's in charge, no matter about who's in the public and private institutions. And as we heard with the youth are ready for this change, but there are those of us who are this age, my age and above, and I include myself in this, that never learned about this.
Right.
We're learning for the very first time, and perhaps we're a little bit slower in this regard.
And you also encounter the phenomenon of denialism. You must encounter it all the time. How do you deal with it?
So, there is still people who want to argue that gravity doesn't exist. They want to argue the basic facts. And even though the TRC and all the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation works with credentialed researchers, people in public institutions who have long peer review processes, many different eyes looking at, there are a few individuals in small pockets throughout the country who want to argue basic facts. You're always going to get that. There are people who are going to deny the experiences of survivors, even though they're willing to accept survivors of Holocaust and genocides from across the world, that somehow in this country we have to suddenly doubt those who had firsthand experience of what happened at the schools. And then they also want to doubt that we're not worth searching for, that they want to say things, whether it be murdered and missing Indigenous women in Winnipeg, who are in landfills. We want to say, oh, it's not feasible, it's not worthwhile to search for children who are lost at residential schools. The simple fact is we should never be ruled by the lowest common denominator in society who just don't want to accept basic facts. We should be higher than that. We should believe in this crazy idea that all of us are humans, all of us belong here, and our ancestors put us in these treaties, these relationships, so that we would care for each other, listen to each other, and our kids one day would maybe even marry and make this beautiful place that wouldn't just be Indigenous and settler, it would actually be about all of us. Maybe we'll even live up to the name one day of Kanata, an Iroquoian word which means the village. It doesn't mean pipeline or profit or leave people behind. It means that the power of our village, the value of our village, is how do we feed everybody? How do we look after each other? And how do we, most importantly, raise our children together?
Are those the things that put a lift in your step?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's lots of reasons to be pessimistic. And I think that the land is still stolen. All Indigenous territory that has been taken over 150 years, all of that is still stolen. We still have to return stolen land. A few pockets in here and there have been returned or shared. There are massive amounts of Indigenous children in the child welfare system, in jails, murdered, missing Indigenous women and girls, as I spoke about just a minute ago. I mean, we have massive challenges in this country. Who's experiencing the most poverty? Who's experienced the most homelessness? Who's experienced the most diabetes? Boil water advisories, as we spoke about. It's clear in front of us what we need to do. But then you get a day like this. And on a day like this, it's hard not to have hope. It's hard not to see that people from all walks of life and think differently and act differently have the courage to walk together and to wear a shirt to commemorate survivors, but then also say we're going to move together, and it's not going to be perfect, it's going to be messy, it's probably going to be more turbulent than anything else, but maybe, just maybe this is what it's supposed to look like. Maybe all the different conflict that led us to this point, that we still have turbulence to get to a maybe place in which we can have some stability and some calmness where we can drink tea together.
You're an educator. I know you know kids. There are kids right now who are sitting in classrooms and in auditoriums, and they are watching this. What do you want them to hear from you?
I wish we could catch up to you. We are raising the most competent generation in history. I was at the University of Ottawa this morning where I heard amazing students who have been completely raised to understand the Indian Act residential schools and Indigenous contributions, that Indigenous peoples had central core principles that led to democracy, healthcare, multiculturalism. Those are Indigenous ideas. They didn't come from Europe. They came from ideas that Indigenous peoples had that we should share it, listen to each other, and work together towards unanimity in the future, protecting ourselves from the winter and the mosquitoes. Now, the Indigenous and Canadian young people are ready for this change, what I would say to young people is we're working hard to catch up to you. Be patient with us, work with us.
And help your parents.
Yes, help your parents, that's right.
So the official program here on Parliament Hill is really, I mean it this time, about to begin. We will be here throughout it, but again, we will endeavor not to interrupt. And of course, as we said it before, the Indigenous languages are a fundamental part of this program. It is important for them to be spoken and to be heard uninterrupted. The survivors have been very clear with us that they want people to hear what they have to say in their own language. So we're not going to be translating them. We expect, though, that after there will be an English summary of what they said. So keep an eye on the bottom of your screen. To a degree, it will explain what is happening. Have a listen, just be present. And here now is the National Commemorative Gathering, Remembering the Children, produced for the Aboriginal People's Television Network and the National Centre for Truth and Reconciliation.
Switch facility.
Miigwech, Kokum's boys, I love you guys. Miigwech. Kwe kakina. Bonjour tout le monde. Hello everyone. I love you too. I love all of you. Carney Mitch Kishigun Kinu Nidishnakas Kitaganzi Bidonjaban. My English name is Claudette Commanda, and I am from the community of Kitagan-Zibi. And we use the word Algonquin, but we are Anishinaabe. Miigwech niwichki wedug. Miigwech kibija yegoma nongum. Bijaji koma Anishinaabe ki o mama wenenewag. Bienvenue à tous, bienvenue ici à la territoire.
Welcome to all. Welcome on the unceded territory of the Anishinaabe people.
To this beautiful ancestral homeland of the Algonquin people, but we know that we are Anishinaabe o mama weneniwag. Welcome each and every one of you beautiful people. Welcome. Just feel the breath of the Creator as the wind is surrounding us. To you, the survivors, the elders, Your Excellencies, Prime Minister Carney, distinguished guests, community members, family, friends, Canadians, it's an honor to be here together as I greet you with my heart of love and kindness. We're here today to honor, to commemorate, to remember, and to give love to all those children who did not make it home, to the children who are now adults and elders who are here with us that made it home from residential schools. To all those of residential school survivors who returned home but are no longer here with us, let us put our heart, our spirit, our mind, and our voice together as one to remember, to show love, and to say thank you to the Creator as we say miigwech kishiminado, kitchimiigwech, miigwech kinakego, miigwech kokomistipikisis, miigwech mishomiskisis, kitchimiigwech, jojoaki. Niboksendam unje nongom kishiminado. Niboksendam zagieduin. Bimadzwin. Ashish mashkawi wizin. And Creator, the Great Spirit, we lift our hearts to you and our voice. We thank you for bringing us here today together as one. As we honor our ancestors and the first ancestors of this land, we honor the ancestors of all Indigenous peoples from coast to coast to coast on this beautiful land of Turtle Island. Creator, we thank you for blessing us with our grandmother, the moon, and our grandfather, the sun, and our mother, the earth. Creator, my prayer for all who are here and the blessings, keep everyone safe, bless the survivors, and let them know those that are in the spirit world and those who are here. We hold them in our heart with love, Zagieduin. We hold them in our heart with kindness. We hold them in our heart with respect. And Creator, we thank you for hearing this prayer. Thank you, Creator. Chimigwej Kishiminado. I also want to acknowledge the Algonquin leadership who is here, our Grand Chief and our chiefs who are here as well, for they too walk with the survivors. They too are survivors. Ladies and gentlemen, Kizagian, I love you all. Take good care. Miigwech. Love you.
Tanse Mr. Canada. Utan tanan, Gawagumagan Noak, Anishinaabe, Algonquin Nation. Kagisigatos stick, Utaski wa maga, Eagasimo, Ottawa, Isigatil. Earl what the Siga son, Egonia, Beg Ute Puesta Mage Uche, Unotskopone, Negotase Kagi, Gartek, Nepamatun, Aski, Etase, Alberta.
Oui, bonjour, bienvenue aux survivants des...
Hello, welcome to the survivors of residential schools that are here with us, and also to those who are at home. And I went to day school at Wogan.
Canada. National Day of Truth and Reconciliation. Thank you for joining us on the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, also known as Orange Shirt Day. This is remembering the children. We say megwechai hai to Elder Claudette Commanda for offering a beautiful prayer for all of us.
Oui, Earl, et merci de vous joindre à nous, se souvenir des enfants, Journée nationale de la vérité et de la réconciliation.
And thank you for joining us. We started with the Eagle River Singer, and this bentwood box was handcrafted for the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada by the Coast Salish artist Luke Merston.
Inuit and Métis survivors of residential schools.
It's such an honor to be here today. It's been 10 years since the final report of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission ended its mandate and released their 94 calls to action. But there's still more work to do.
Et nous sommes ici pour commémorer les survivants et survivantes.
We're here today to commemorate survivors and children who never went home.
Leur histoire orale dans leur langue. Et nous allons également...
We have many survivors here who will share their oral histories in their language with you. We are also going to be sharing the stage with some of this country's best performers, and we are being aired on more than 3 dozen TV broadcasters and over 150 radio stations.
This national moment in broadcast history.
Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples coming together to mark the 5th National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. Hautawao no Temiao, I'd like to welcome our first residential school survivor to the stage. She has an incredibly powerful story. Charlotte Nolan is 73 years old. She is Métis, and she not only survived the Indian Day institution, but also the 60s scoop. She survived the heroin addiction, transphobic violence, and a suicide attempt. She was only 17 years old when she first tried to transition. But it wasn't until she was 65 years old when she completed her transition. What bravery. She is a grandmother, a knowledge keeper, a sweat lodge keeper, a sun dancer, a pipe carrier. Please welcome the irrepressible, beautiful soul, Charlotte Nolan.
Est-ce que tu veux prendre?
Danse, bonjour. Anista, depois kapskauki huiskoja. Ekwa, mikä suomessa tämän pimtät? Ekwa, Charlotte. Kihune dodam, Red River Settlement, Dochen. Tasawini yao in the new Anishinaabe Otipimiswak. Greetings, my relatives. I'm honored to stand here today and to speak with you and to share some of our story from our family who were affected by the residential schools, the Indian Day schools, the 60s scoop, and violence at the hands of society. Les créateurs, merci pour la journée.
Thank you, Creator, for this day. Thank you for our grandchildren, for youth, for our elders. Thank you for all you grant us, Creator. And I ask you to be with all our relatives here today and tomorrow.
Kinanas content for the gift of life and the blessings of creation. Mosum pisum, kokum pisum. Kikinawaski. Kinanas content, kokum now, mosum now, for the wisdom and guidance you share with us each day. Kinanas content, kikinawaski, maskiki equa mitsu. Equa mitiknabe, equa kokomosum nasne. All my relatives, today is a day that we hold dear in our hearts. Today is a day that we remember those that never came home. Today is a day that we honor the elders, the survivors, and we keep them in our prayers. And we ask this beautiful country to work with us in reconciliation. Reconciliation isn't just about the Indigenous people and the government and the churches. It's about every Canadian. We all have to work at this. If we want it to work, we have to put an effort into it. I invite each and every one of you, if you ever come to Manitoba, come to our Sundance. We just completed our 3rd year of Sundance with Two-Spirit people, and we made history when we opened up that Sundance. That the ceremonies are meant for everyone. Holding these little moccasins, we should remember these children and the lives they gave so that we could move forward as a nation. I want to thank each and every one of you for being here. From my heart to yours, may your journey be a good one. And Muslim Pisum smile down on you. Kokum Pisum grant you that sacred medicine, Nipi. And may all your relatives hold you in their arms on this day and every day into the future. Kinanas Komatin Chimigwich. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Charlotte Nolin, d'avoir partagé votre
Thank you very much, Charlotte Nolin, for having shared your courageous story with us.
Le système des écoles résidentielles au Canada.
The residential schools in Canada was a network directed by the church and the government to assimilate Indigenous children into Canadian society and no longer speak Indigenous languages. The most effective way of accomplishing this is to withdraw them from the influence of the family, the community, and their culture.
There were over 150,000 First Nation, Métis, and Inuit children who were taken and placed in these institutions where thousands of children suffered from neglect, malnutrition, and abuse.
In addition to residential schools, the Canadian government and churches also relied on the day school system to assimilate Indigenous children. These institutions were built in or near Indigenous communities, which permitted children to live with their parents or guardians and remain in community. Day schools, like residential schools, were places where survivors also experienced various harms and abuses. Both systems and many other colonial systems were created with the aim of erasing Indigenous identities, languages, cultures, and communities.
Madame Ripa Evik Carlton était l'une parmi 10 enfants forcés à entrer à l'école.
Madame Ripa Evik Carlton was one of the children forced to go to the school at Aglukark and Pangnotin in Nunavut. She was born in the Cumberland Strait in Nunavut and was moved to Pangnotin when she was only 5 years old. She said that life was never the same after this forced displacement of her Inuit community. It's something that we still see in some regions of the world, the forced displacement of peoples.
Our dear sister Ripa has served her people through various roles in health and family services. She has worked as a housing manager in Panaricting, a community social worker in child protection, and as a family support worker in Ottawa. Ripa also worked at a national organization of Inuit women coordinating activities around substance abuse.
All this helped her build skills to co-found the Mamirsavik Healing Center, the first Inuit-specific trauma and addiction treatment center in southern Canada. Please welcome to the stage Ripa Evik Carlton.
This is a beautiful sight to be looking at everybody from the stage. Unusakut ulomi ovanut pimariuvok nangekatakakiluta ilinera katalausimayunik amma ilanginnik. Ikaumatitiluta tana ulo naleusimayok. A National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. It is an honor to speak in front of you today with survivors and their families as we reflect on this day, a National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. My name is Ripa Evik Carlton. I was born in Illungayut, Cumberland Sound, Nunavut. My family was relocated to Pangnotang, Nunavut when I was 5 years old. I attended the Atagayuk Federal Day School for 10 years. The impacts of residential schools and colonization continue to affect our lives today. I have seen how forced relocation and separation from the land has impacted us, and how it created struggles with loss, grief, identity, and wellness. The trauma and intergenerational impacts have strongly impacted me and my family, like it has with many Indigenous families across this country. While I was in federal day school in Pengnatang for 10 years, I was not allowed to speak my language or learned the traditional ways of my people. And I witnessed very rough treatment of students by our teachers. There is much more I can share about my experience, but does not have the time right now. I have also witnessed the strength of my people and how we continue to hold on to our culture, language, and values and practices that connect us to who we are as people. We cannot forget our ancestors. We cannot forget our ancestors, elders, who have passed on their knowledge, traditions, and teachings to us. We need to keep our culture strong and keep healing from the negative impacts of colonization has on us as Indigenous people. For our youth, let's keep going. Keep learning from your elders and your role models, and be proud of who you are. Never, never give up. Keep asking questions. Keep pursuing your education. The sky is the limit for you. I believe we all share responsibility in the work of remembering, honoring, and healing and rebuilding. I ask that each one of us continue to listen to survivors, to learn the true history of this country, and to stand together with Indigenous people to create a future built on truth, respect, and reconciliation. On this day, it is important that no survivor be left alone. Everyone who carries these memories of our broken past must have somebody to help them carry the burden. Not one person should be left alone to do this very, very hard work. In our shared strength as Indigenous people and survivors, we must also rise up. It is time to use our voices and shape our future for our children and grandchildren and for those to come. That it is better than what we've had to endure as Indigenous people. Today we are reminded of the sorrows of the past, but we can't lose sight of the hope for the future. The strength and resilience of our ancestors and elders can and will encourage us, inspire us to create a better future full of hope. Huyanamik nalagun nahasi. She
comes from Kanjik-Sualujuak in Quebec. She attended Federal Day School in Kuujjuaq. and went on to become a trailblazer and a leader for the Inuit and then the rest of Canada. Pagamchi Tema, please welcome Her Excellency the Right Honorable Mary Simon, Governor General of Canada.
Good afternoon. Tungasugitsi ilunasi. Bonjour. What a beautiful sight out here in front of me. A mix of Indigenous people and Canadians being here in remembrance of what happened to our past, but also looking to the future. Survivants des écoles résidentielles.
Survivors of the residential school, Chef of Coton.
Prime Minister, and distinguished guests. First, we are gathered today on the unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people who had cared for this land for thousands of years. Over the past 50 years of my career, I have always dedicated myself to reconciliation. J'ai toujours jeté des ponts.
I always built bridges
Des divisions.
where others saw divisions.
Reconciliation has never just been professional. It has shaped my thoughts. It has stirred my courage and at times my anger. It has fueled my dreams. Tamanna pitcha hadigi jumigia harnet pinasunitu inamu ilinga simangitu uvanut isumagayakanik tokak tisahatta simayok namanak samut ammalu anan siak ka uhaw sa hatta simayangit atuga harnikan ni ikhaw matitaw hatta simayunga ilangan ilo hubia gunnay patsunga kisiani sibunirigia halang ni atatinik birok sa sunga isumahatta simayunga. Je continuerai d'avancer sur le chemin de la réconciliation.
I will continue to move forward on the path of reconciliation with the hope for future generations.
Over the past 50 years, Canada has made meaningful progress. Governments have taken steps to address systemic issues and invest in First Nations, Inuit, and Métis communities. In 2010, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission sparked a national awakening as survivors bravely shared their truth about residential schools. Since then, research into missing children and unmarked graves has deepened our understanding of the trauma Indigenous peoples continue to carry. En tant que Gouverneur Général, j'ai assisté
As the Governor General, I attended the presentation of historic apologies
Pape François.
made by Pope Francis.
I first witnessed the audience, I witnessed the first audience between Indigenous leaders and His Majesty King Charles III just days before his coronation. For me, these moments mark the beginning of renewed relationships grounded in respect and dialogue. I've seen Indigenous presence grow at national ceremonies across Canada. J'ai vu un plus grand soutien du public.
I saw greater support from the public towards reconciliation.
Our classrooms are beginning to embrace inclusive history and more Indigenous children are learning their cultural practices and ancestral languages with pride. Ce sont des progrès importants.
This is important progress.
But much more work remains.
Pour passer en anglais, on a juste à peser dessus, mais pour passer au français, à l'anglais, il faut switcher 2 fois.
Inequities persist, and we share a lifelong responsibility to address them. I have seen Indigenous people striving to heal while still struggling to meet basic needs. Too often, they lack access to adequate trauma-informed mental health support that honors their traditional healing practices. So today, I call on every Canadian to renew their commitment to reconciliation. Aujourd'hui, j'invite toutes les
Today,
personnes au Canada
I invite all in Canada
à renouveler
to renew
l'engagement
their commitment
pour la réconciliation.
to reconciliation.
We have the tools. We have the knowledge. Each of us has a circle of influence. Our schools, workplaces, families, and communities. We can all make a difference. Continuons de nous renseigner
Let's continue
et la culture
to inform ourselves of the history and culture of First Nations, Inuit,
des Métis.
and Métis.
We cannot change the past, but we must remember it so that its atrocities are never repeated. And while the present is ours to shape, we can also build a better future. I see a present and a future where young Indigenous people are embracing Canada without compromising their identity, where they can fully be themselves, pursue the professions they aspire to, and give back to their communities, whether as teachers, doctors, nurses, plumbers, whatever you want to be, even as Governor General.
Rob.
La Canada tire sa force.
Canada draws its strength from its diversity.
Let's keep building a country where all peoples, Indigenous and non-Indigenous, can truly thrive and face the challenges ahead together. And I think today is a time to remember the past, the present, and the future. And the future is something that we think about with hope. Today is also hopeful. We are hoping that today will make a difference to all of us. So thank you very much. Merci. Nakormik.
Thank you. Which everybody knows.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for those moving words. Tagakpik squel na. Egwa, tawa kami ano ako ke. Ewigi to check egwa. Egi na wasuni check juno.
Leur musique est basée sur des récits émotionnels et des harmonies vocales séduisantes, vivant sur le
Emotional of the people on that Treaty 1 territory. Jameson, Burnstick, KK, Nadia and Jason Berman, folk music that's quite moving, as well as Jason's Maitreys on the slide guitar. Here are Burnstick.
Merci tellement d'être ici. Aujourd'hui, on chante pour tous les enfants qui ne sont jamais rentrés chez eux.
Thank you all for being here. Today we're singing for those who had never made
We remember and honor the children that never made it home. This is for the 250.
Tous les soirs, je rêve de toi. Quand serai-je chez moi? Les années s'enfuient, mais le mal ne s'effacera. Et l'amour, je n'oublierai pas. Like a thief in the night, they come and take our love. Maybe I'm born with a curse, or maybe I'm less than a sideways glance. So I must be made of sin. Oh, I must be made of sin. And as a child, I dreamt through each night. Your arms too far to embrace. May the light from your eyes never fade away. I am aching, I need you now. Like a thief in the night, they come and take our love. Maybe we're born with a curse, or maybe we're less than a sideways glance. So we must be made of sin. Oh, we must be made of sin. Child, I dreamt through each night. These walls around me would break, and the hands that loved me would find me somehow. I am aching, I need you now. Like a thief in the night, they come and take our love. Maybe they're born with a curse, or maybe they're less than a sideways glance. So they must be made of sin. Oh, they must be made of sin. Oh, they must be made of sin.
Please welcome to the stage the Executive Director of the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation, Stephanie Scott. Stephanie is from Roseau River, Anishinaabe First Nation. She will share about the memorial cloth.
It's incredible to see how many people are here and how it's grown over the last few years. So miigwech. Buju, Miskwa Nakwarakwe, Anishinaabe, Wabashishi Dodem. Good afternoon. My name is Stephanie Scott, and I have the honor and the privilege to serve as the Executive Director of the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation. My family is from the Roseau River Anishinaabe First Nation in Treaty 1 territory, and I'm of the Martin clan. I am the daughter of a survivor, and I'm a 60 scoop survivor. I am grateful to always be welcome to the unceded and unsurrendered lands of the Algonquin people, and to Elder Claudette Commanda miigwech for your prayers, and the Eagle River Singers for the drum. And to all leadership and to all the health supports from across the land, thank you for being here and for always taking care of us. I also want to acknowledge Her Excellency Mary Simon, who has supported us over the years, and welcome Prime Minister Mark Carney. We look forward to further continuing and developing the relationship with you. And miigwech to all the survivors and intergenerational survivors who are with us today. We are here for you. We are also here because of you. Without your strength and courage, your power and persistence, the truth of the residential school system would have never been known. Governments and churches tried to silence you. They tried to deny the terrible truths of abuse and neglect. Then came the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada and Canada's apology to survivors. And these things happened because survivors took a stand and took the federal government and the churches to court. And we know this has been decades of work, and it's been 10 years since the TRC's report, and we say miigwech to all of the commissioners for leading that work. And while there has been progress on the 94 calls to action, it has been slow and it has been uneven. And our dear friend, the late Honorable Murray Sinclair Mazina-Gija-Gaban, the chair of the TRC, said, "We have shown you a mountain, and we have shown you a path to the top, and we call on you to do the climbing." And we still have a long climb ahead of us. And even as we're climbing, there are still people out there who want to drag us back down, who want to distort and deny the history of residential schools, and we all know this must stop now. Denialism is hate born out of the same racism that led to residential schools in the first place, and that hate cannot hide behind free speech. Survivors have repeatedly shown us how we must respond, how we must continue to uphold the truth. The National Student Memorial Register was created in ceremony and launched in 2019 under the guidance of survivors and elders in response to calls to action 72 and 73. Today, we are sharing the verification of an additional 1,143 children who did not return home. The memorial cloth is a sacred blessed item by elders and carries the names of the many children listed in the National Student Memorial Register. At 60 meters in length, it is a vital, powerful part of our ceremonies to honor these precious lives. Every one of them was loved, and every child mattered. Let us all remember and honor these children as a sacred memorial cloth is lifted. It is our hope that families reclaim their children's names and begin their healing process. Miigwech, merci, thank you.
trust. Forget that language our parents taught us. 'Cause when they're done, you won't recognize yourself. They cut our hair, they scarred our skin, they tried to break the child within. Yeah, they cut our hair, they scarred our skin. Our hearts, they ache with pain so hard to bear, as we long for our parents' loving care. No love was shown, no kindness there, only unearned shame and great tears of fear. Way highway, hey highway, hey hey oh. Way highway, hey highway, hey hey oh. Hardwood floors laid throughout this place. The workers here, oh, what a disgrace. They were attempting to wipe our whole race. Yeah, they cut our hair, they scarred our skin, they tried to break the child within. Yeah, they cut our hair, they scarred our skin. Way highway, hey highway, hey hey oh. 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 Our hearts, they ached with pain so hard to bear, as we long for our parents' loving care. No love was shown, no kindness there, only unearned shame and great tears of fear. Way highway, hey highway, grave reveals a hidden past. Buried truth revealed at last.
Notre prochain invité est devenu le 24e Premier ministre du Canada en tant que chef.
Next guest became Canada's 24th Prime Minister. As this country's political leader, he sets the stage for Reconciliation Canada.
And to honor the survivors of the institutions who tried to kill the Indian in the child. Please welcome the Right Honourable Mark Carney.
Miigwech, Charlotte, Ripa, the survivors here, the survivors across the land, Miigwech, thank you. We're gathered here today on the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. Your Excellency, the Governor General, colleagues, esteemed guests. On this day, both solemn and hopeful, allow me to begin by painting a picture that illustrates our journey. At the beginning of my mandate as Prime Minister, I had an Indigenous painting installed outside the Cabinet room behind us in the West Block of Parliament. It's called A Brief History of the Northwest Coast, designed by Luke Parnell. And it depicts a painful part of our shared history through 11 wooden panels with images inspired by the design on the bent wood boxes and feast bowls of the Nishka and the Haida. The first few of those panels burst with vibrant colors. And then, with contact, those colors fade until the middle ones become smothered in white paint, a culture literally whitewashed. The final panels begin to resemble the original glory, with image, though marked by what has been endured, that are renewed and resurgent. This painting captures the pain of suppression and assimilation, and the possibility of reconciliation and renewal. That possibility rests on truth. Truth is the foundation of justice. And the truth is, for more than a century, this country ran residential schools. Over 150,000 First Nations, Inuit, and Métis children were taken from their families and their communities, torn from their languages, their cultures, and their identities. Les pensionnats représentent l'architecture d'une politique.
These residential schools represent the architecture of a cancel culture. It's not a distant chapter, but a lasting
Residential
truth.
schools are a truth that survivors have carried with them when others would not. A truth recounted more than 6,500 times before the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, so we could no longer say that we did not know. On this National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, we honor survivors and the children who never returned home. We reflect on the devastating legacy of the residential school system. And we, as a government and as a people, we match remembrance with responsibility. La responsabilité de faire progresser.
The responsibility of progressing in reconciliation, the responsibility of creating the conditions for renewal and
Canada's new
uplifting.
government is moving forward on the Truth and Reconciliations Commission's calls for action. We're advancing the calls for justice from the National Inquiry into Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls. And we are implementing the United Nations Declarations on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act in partnership with Indigenous peoples. I know we have a long way to go, but we are building together in health, in education, in economic opportunity, in housing, upholding Indigenous rights and empowering Indigenous communities with security and prosperity. Le nouveau gouvernement du Canada sera
Canada's new government will also be a partner
en respectant
by respecting self-determination, recognizing the fact that partnerships start with a shared understanding and by making equity and Indigenous participation a priority in the building up of our country.
Merci. Because, well, it's vital that we build. It's more important. It is vital how we build. With Indigenous leadership, Indigenous prosperity, Indigenous opportunity. These must be foundational from the start. We pledge to build a future where survivors are honored with remembrance, with justice, and with a stronger, fairer Canada. Un Canada rendu plus fort par
A Canada made stronger by the resilience of its Indigenous communities.
Reconciliation, as the Governor General, Her Excellency, reminded us, reconciliation is a generational task that must be lived and practiced every day by every Canadian. And it's that point. That's why I began with the painting. That's why the pain of the repression and the possibility of renewal are the last images that I, as Prime Minister, and my ministers see before we enter the Cabinet room to take some of the most important decisions in this country. It's there so we remember what came before us, and so we are seized with the task ahead of us. We will not fail you. Merci beaucoup, et vive le Canada.
Thank you very much. Long live Canada.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Premier ministre Carney.
Thank you, Prime Minister Carney.
Aglukark, Kistabish et un Anishinaabe, la Première Nation Abitibi-Winnie au Québec, parle couramment le français.
Our next guest speaks three languages, French, English, and his traditional Anishinaabe language. He was raised on the banks of the Adrienne River and spoke his mother tongue until the age of 6 years. We were sent off to a residential school and stuck there for 10 years.
Community and the Grand Chief of the Algonquin Council of Western Quebec. His name, Uwiwun Ujinagazi, represents him as a storyteller for his nation. Am tawagamiano, pagam chiche mat, please welcome Ujinagazi Kistabish.
Kaya kinagada siya kumata siya. Ngit simenendane bindihan mo ano mata siya. Shit. It's me ko na mai ko na gadiga biye good well. Gadiga biye saya ga shit. Das bun git ji ke ikno mariga me. Ki me tuji mo. Ni gash ke to gi me tuji mo na piska saga. Mata siya.
I spent 10 years in a residential school, during which time I learned French, my second language. When I went there, I didn't know who Richard Kistabish was. I only found out 1 year later that that was my name, the name that I had to bear for the rest of my life. I accepted it. But with considerable difficulty, because I couldn't come to terms with who I was. It was a question of identity. I undertook the measures to find my identity. Today we celebrate the children who died and who never returned home from these schools. We also celebrate the memory of these children. And I would like that today we also remember that there are still survivors alive, but who never went home.
When I left the residential school, my name was Richard Kistabish. I didn't know who is that guy. Some people in my life, they call me a crazy guy. But I had fun with that name. But also, I was serious about getting back my identity, my language, my culture, the way I do things, in the Anishinaabe way. A bit to be way. That's where I'm coming from. We don't talk much about the territory when we're trying to bring back the identity of people. It is most important to talk about the territory, because that territory teaches us the things that we know, the things that we learn. Like the river here, Ottawa River, is born right in the heart of the Anishinaabe territory. That is the longest river in Quebec, the longest one. There's 9 dams on that river, 9. At the beginning of this month, we were doing the Anishinaabe people, we gathered about their culture, about their language in Temiskaming First Nation. We did something great at that time. That was the first time in 100 years that someone made a birch canoe and put it on that river. 100 years. These kind of events make me so proud, you know, a reason to live, a reason to exercise my rights. So we have to pass it on to the next generations, my kids. And one of the important things that we should do and we must do is to get back our Anishinaabe name, original name. It's a small thing, but it's really the first step to get back your identity. My name is Ijenaguzi. Ijenaguzi. Most people that I tell them my name, they have a hard time to pronounce it the right way. It is like when I started to learn the French words. People were laughing at me. Now I'm laughing at them when they try to say my name. We have to remember that the kids that didn't make it home, we have to remember them. And this is why today I have to take this off, and I will give it to my grandson to remember. And from now on, I want to carry this shirt. I bought it in New Mexico. But it is one of the identity that I carry with me. So my name is Ijinaguzi. Ijinaguzi. Yeah, we have to repeat it every time, every day. I look to the mirror myself and I find myself so beautiful. I ask to the people that they are in authority in this country, that they are still survivors, that they lost their name when they get to residential school, but they are still alive, like me. And I want to go home. I want to go home. People call me Ijinaguzi at my place, but Ijinaguzi travels. I travel all over the world, but still my name is Ijinaguzi. So please, make it do it. Make it happen. Miigwech.
Notre prochain artiste a travaillé fort.
Our next artist worked very hard throughout their career, extending over several decades. He was the leader of a few groups and found success when he decided to go solo. Julian Salo is an Afro-Indigenous musician with Mohawk roots. He's been nominated to several Juno Awards, as well as a nominee to the Polaris Music Prize. If you've never heard his music, I think you'll really love him. Here is Julian Taylor.
This is a song about strength, resilience, perseverance, and all my relations. Somehow, everyone eventually dreams someday. This is Ganasoha, Seeds. Now here you are, you're in full flower. You're flexible in all your power. You got all the sunlight and the air that you need. They tried to bury us, but they didn't know we were seeds. Now there you stand hour after hour, strong as an oak, tall as a tower. The storm keeps raging, but you never pay no heed. They tried to bury us, but they didn't know we were seeds. Somehow, everything eventually dreams someday. Somehow, everyone eventually dreams someday. I see you shining strong and clear. No one can stop a good idea, nobody like you. There's nobody like you. I was a flower, I was an oak. I was provoked, and when I awoke, I started grazing for all the things that I need. They tried to bury us, but they didn't know we were seeds. They tried to bury us, but they didn't know we were seeds. Somehow, everything eventually dreams someday. Somehow, everyone eventually dreams someday. They knocked you down, erased your name. You stood your ground and wouldn't change. You swept your place now, standing alongside the trees. They tried to bury us, but they didn't know we were seeds. You are a star and you are hope. Smoke signals from the air evoke that from the darkest depths that our hearts can be freed. They tried to bury us, but they didn't know we were seeds. Sing it! They tried to bury us, but they didn't know we were seeds. Somehow, everything eventually dreams. Someday, somehow, everyone eventually dreams. Someday, somehow, everything eventually dreams. Someday, somehow, everyone eventually dreams. Someday. Thank you very much, Nadia. Jean Diabo, Larry Diabo.
Qua Julian Taylor, pero pagamchicha muatan. Umaga kitutsage. Maski iwon. Kinanaskom to now, kinatawis ko now, ewa. Kitupin ko na, no? Ewa, mistahe, kiwichi ko now. The music of our artist is medicine. It raises us up while healing our hearts. Music helps to share the truth of our stories, and it has the power to build bridges. Don't you agree, Melissa?
Oh, I do. It is our artists who will tell our stories of our survivors and of our leaders and our history. Lucien Wabanonik est avec nous pour partager son histoire. Il a servi en tant que chef du Conseil de la Nation.
Lucien Wabanonik is here to share his story. He has served as chief of the Lac-Simon Anishinaabe Nation Council and as Grand Chief of the Anishinaabe Nation Tribal Council. Lucien attended the Saint-Marc de Fuguerie Residential Institute at 12 years old. Like thousands of other children, Lucien suffered difficult experiences and lasting intergenerational impact. Today, he advocates for community healing while advancing issues on land rights, poverty, and internalized colonialism for the Algonquin people. Let's welcome to the stage Lucien Wabanonik.
I was saying, are you feeling good? We better be feeling good today. You know, it's a beautiful day. We have a beautiful audience today. I remember when I went back in my first day at the boarding school in Saint-Marc de Fuguerie. I didn't have no shoes at that time. I wore one of those moccasins in front of us here. I didn't speak a word of French. Not a word in English, not a word. And you know what? When I cross the river over there tomorrow, I'll be speaking French. And this side of the river, I'll be speaking in English to you today. But you know, after hearing those special invitees, the people who spoke just before me, you know, they gave respect. Respect to those children who never came home. I was almost one of them, like many of the elders are today. They are here, but many of them didn't make it here today. So I give them my respect. I give all of you our respect, and I welcome you on this unceded territory, on Anishinaabe unceded territory. Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. All of you distinguished guests, thank you for being here to listen to our words. and not to forget, we are First Nation. We are the true owners of this land. And we are ready as First Nations governments, nations, and peoples to work with governments who are willing in good faith to work with us for the betterment of our nations and peoples, for the betterment of our future. The society as we know it today needs to learn more about our history, our stories. The trauma that we've lived, that I've lived, is intergenerational. It's going to be a long time to heal. And we will need Canadians to support us to go through our journey. Because this journey, we're in it together. We are together in this journey. I want to thank all the people who are here, who made it here. Je vais terminer en français. Si on regarde dans
I would conclude in French. If we were to look towards the east, on the shores of the river, there are difficult issues with the current government that does not recognize systemic racism, that doesn't recognize the indigenous people of Quebec and Labrador, doesn't recognize our territories in our nation, because in Quebec, our territories are unceded as well. It belongs to our people. It belongs to our nations.
Ceci doit toujours être un rappel à tous les gouvernements.
This is something we have to remind all governments throughout the country. And I will call on all the governments to uphold the UN declarations.
She was one of the first Indigenous artists to find mainstream success. Born in Churchill, Manitoba, and raised in Arviat, NWT, Susan Aglukark's music has inspired us. It has made us feel seen. Her legacy will carry on through her music and lyrics. Please welcome Pagamchichema, Susan Aglukark.
It is a pleasure to be here with you today to honor, to hold, and to remember. We stand with you, survivors, for your strength and your courage. And today we honor and we celebrate and we remember. Koyan namig.
Inland
Merci beaucoup pour cette magnifique prestation, Suzanne Aglukark.
Thank you very much, Suzanne Aglukark. What a moving day. September 30th, the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, is always a powerful day with moments that move me so much.
Orange shirt and all of the incredible survivors out there, you are why we are here, why we need to remind Parliament Hill that we will continue to take up space and show the generations to come how strong and proud we are as Indigenous people. I hope we have made the survivors proud and that you can return home with your cups full, your hearts singing, and your spirits soaring.
Muy conta. It is important to honor the survivors and the little children who never made it home. And to remember they were innocent souls who didn't deserve the treatment they received. But we are strong Indigenous people of Magyano, and we will continue above and thrive. Our next 7 generations are depending on Kakyo, on all of us. Aho.
As we all head towards home with our families and friends, we will hear from the Eagle River Singers as we retire the Eagle staffs. Thanks to our audience, the speakers, and all the performers here in Ottawa for honoring the survivors by taking the time to be here with us today. Thank you to our audience, the speakers, and all the performers here in Ottawa for honoring the survivors by taking the time to be here with us today.
And to our viewers at home and around Turtle Island and across the waters, remember, on this day, and every day, without truth, we cannot have reconciliation. Sagiso, Sagito, Mamogamato, Kaipumek, Sagitna, Minagakyo, Canada.
Jusqu'à maintenant, tout le monde, merci d'être venu.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Beautiful. The Eagle River Singers singing everyone out there to make the survivors proud, to make the spirits of the little ones who never made it home proud. That was the objective today. Again and again today, people who took to that stage, the survivors, the Governor General, said what they saw before them was beautiful. The mix of Canadians, Indigenous peoples, newcomers, all as one. We heard from survivors like Ripa Eva Carlton, who spoke as an elder, but it was the voice of the little kid within she used, the voice being used loudly today, the little ones who weren't allowed to speak their own languages before, who could not escape, who could not fight back. You know, another phrase we heard often today was that there are reasons for hope, reasons why days like this are making a difference, why change is real, not always quick, certainly not quick enough, but happening. And one line that I think rightly sticks was from the singer Julian Taylor. They tried to bury us, but they forgot that we were seeds. So music, momentum, hope. Nigan, what are your reasons for hope from this?
I had a list of things that I wanted to talk about.
Sure.
And then I saw the last moment. I don't know if you saw the last moment, our viewers would have seen. Do you notice how nobody wanted to leave? Do you notice that?
Right.
At the end, everybody at the end of that song wanted more, because this sort of beautiful moment of people coming together in different ways and committing to a new spirit, or a spirit of collaboration and collectivity throughout the country. I mean, there's so many different moments that were remarkable today. We heard Lucien Wabanonik talk about language. Mary Simon talked about youth. And then there was this kind of sass moment. There was a kind of a sass moment with Richard Kistabish, who reminded the Prime Minister there are 9 dams on the Ottawa River the second after he said, we need to be building things in the country. We need to be having economic development. I think that's a bit of elder sass that you see in a day like this.
Well, if anyone's entitled to the sass, it is the elders on a day like today. What, in your world as an educator, offer something if you can that gives you hope?
You cannot deny the impact, the silence, the complete emotion that came over this crowd, and I think the country. My phone was blowing up when the memorial cloth came out.
Right.
The impact on this country, on the lost children, the fact that we're still searching for many of them, the fact that we are continuing to have this great wound as a country, which is just slightly healing. Every step that we take on a day like this, when we join together, when we commit to a better future together, when we deal with some of the real huge emergency situations in communities and in institutions across the country, a little bit is healed through that process when we acknowledge the truth, and then we can start to work on reconciliation.
It is completely haunting. I've seen it a few times. 60 meters long, 1,000 new names on it right
there's
now.
new names now added, and there are more names added all the time.
Yep. Excellent. Nigan, thanks very much. Stay tight if you can. We want to remind you, obviously, for anyone affected by residential schools who is finding today particularly difficult, and of course, there is help. The 24-hour National Indian Residential School crisis line can be reached at 1-866-925-4419. Now, when you think of ancestral knowledge, for example, you don't necessarily think of artificial intelligence, and yet that is precisely what is happening. For one nation, First Nation in Yukon, they're hoping that by blending the two together, it will help preserve their past. There are only 12 speakers of the Northern Tushone language left in the First Nation in Mayo, Yukon. So to help keep their language and stories alive, they are turning to AI and immersive technology. Elders record their knowledge in their traditional language, allowing learners to see and hear from them directly, maybe even ignite interests for generations to come. So joining us from Mayo, Yukon is Juanita Taylor. Juanita?
Well, Adrienne, ever since residential school survivors started sharing their stories about attending residential schools, we heard from many who said that they lost their language, and that is because the residential school system forced them to not speak their language anymore, and that had many Inuit, First Nation, and Métis children losing their language. That prompted the Truth and Reconciliation Commission to come up with a call of action focusing on languages, and in fact, call to action number 15 states, We call upon the federal government to appoint, in consultation with Aboriginal groups, an Aboriginal Languages Commissioner. The commissioner should help promote Aboriginal languages and report on the adequacy of federal funding on Aboriginal languages initiatives. And in June of 2021, the Canadian Heritage Minister appointed the first Commissioner of Indigenous Languages, Ron Ignace. Let's talk about the important work that you and your team have been doing since 2021, and not only maintaining but also revitalizing and strengthening Indigenous languages. So talk about just some of the work that has been accomplished to date.
Well, let me back up. But first of all, I want to introduce myself in my Indigenous name, Stmalkin, and it means I was given to me by my great-grandmother, who adopted me as a baby and raised me in the language, which I'm fortunate that she did that, because not long after that, I was taken into the residential school, which I ran away from, and I understand the importance from her and of my experience in residential school about the significance of our languages. And when I got back in 1982 as chief, the elders told me, we are getting lonesome because we don't hear our language like we used to. We don't tell our stories. We don't laugh like we used to. You know, who are we without our languages? Mm-hmm. So I made it a point as chief from 1982 on to make languages fundamental to my work. And as a commission, our job is to support and champion Indigenous languages, but also to speak about the unspeakable past that Canada has rendered on Indigenous peoples, rendering our languages into the state that they're in today.
Let's talk now about the reason why both of us are here in this beautiful community of Mayo, Yukon. We're here to help celebrate with the Nacho-Nayakdan First Nation, who has collaborated with Carleton University on this fascinating project, and be able to share that with the world, and not only in English, but also in their Northern Tutchone language. So how exciting is that?
Oh, it's wonderful. I mean, of all many communities are like this community here. A lot of our languages across this country has to be said that they're critically endangered, where they may have one or two aged speakers left, or endangered where they may have a handful, and even those languages that are viable are threatened. No language in Canada is safe. The hollow presence.
The hologram.
Hologram. Yeah. It's interesting because they could have an elder sitting there and telling the story in their language.
An image of an elder.
An image, a life-like. And I had to go knock. Are you in there? But it's wonderful, so that those that have not had the opportunity to hear their elders speak the language, this is a mechanism which would give them that opportunity, so they could hear the intonations, the pronunciations, and the beauty of their language.
All in the spirit of maintaining,
yes,
strengthening, and revitalizing the language.
And ironically, it's using AI to support and enhance our AI, Aboriginal intelligence.
Aboriginal intelligence, I like that. Commissioner Ignace, it's been a pleasure to speak with you today. Thank you so much. Matna, Kuyanani, Kuyanamik, and thank you again.
I love your language. And unachum kuksacham thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good day to you and good travels.
You as well. Thank you. Bye. All right, back to you, Adrienne.
Juanita Taylor in Mayo, Yukon. That is fantastic. The opportunity to sort of see that artificial intelligence at work would be great. Lucky me, I'm very excited here to be joined by an icon in this country, Susan Aglukark, who So many ways to introduce you. Order of Canada, first Aglukark to be in the top 10, the Juno Awards. You sort of closed out today, and I wonder who was with you in your mind and your heart when you were up there?
Oh, always my great-grandmother. Her name was Tahilk, and she was the woman who adopted and raised my mom, and she was this beautiful woman. And all throughout my career, it's been like on the rough days, she's always there. So that's who was with me today.
What do you think she would have made of this?
Oh, even my parents, I know this is not necessarily a foreign world for them, but when we see each other in these platforms, who would have thought, even for me 30 years ago, 35 years ago, that this could happen? That we're living in a time when we're moving forward with all these issues that we know we brought with us. It's a beautiful time, and it's a complex time, but it sure is a beautiful time to be here.
Do you feel like it's a better time?
In some ways. I mean, you see what was coming through with the names, and you know there's more coming. You know, those are heartbreaking moments.
Spaces on
yes,
the
yeah. Those are hard moments for the Indigenous community. But they also represent opportunities to understand better the history collectively, and then to find places in there to heal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you finished a book. We had people come up and telling you that they had just finished reading a memoir of healing. You're very open in it about your experiences with abuse, your experiences having to travel as a child far, far from home to go to high school. When you're on that stage and you think about those experiences and what those survivors went through, how do you think it changed you?
Well, I titled the book Kihiani because Kihiani means because we must. Even though we were afraid, and fear changes us, but fear can also be an empowering feeling. And from the beginning of the career, I chose to understand that fear. Ilra is the word, to be in a state of emotional fear. I chose for that to be a platform of getting better and learning what tools work for me these 30 years. And there are certainly days when it's overwhelming, when Tahilk and family are there with me. But this is what it was for. These last 10 years since the TRC report was released, this is what our careers collectively, respectively, bring us up to. This is the work we were brought here to do. Whether we're afraid or not, we have to do this work. And so that's what's changed me, is I have to do this, even if I'm afraid.
You talk about fear and you talk about healing in your book. Do you feel like you are healed?
I'm healed enough. Enough. I remember very clearly a moment, 2012, when something as tiny as it was a simple 2-3 seconds, a very particular moment when something fell into place, and I thought, okay, enough. Time to accept the gifts and move forward, continue to build the life. I love the life we've built, but continue to move forward in the building of that life, and then share it. Share the things that we learned that keep us in the lives we're building, the lessons that we're learning for us, by us, Indigenous. But I've healed enough to know it's time to do that next part of my work.
So you almost called time on it.
Yeah. That was done up to that point. That was 2012. Now we're moving forward these years later. I'll carry on doing what I want to do.
Right.
I love now that I can say I am a singer. I am a songwriter,
yes,
but the next stage, so that part's good. Let's carry on with that. Let's do the next stuff.
In terms of looking ahead, you see some young artists on that stage. How would you encourage people to interact with young Indigenous artists right now?
It's really exciting to see how they so easily embrace and live the life of success and celebrity. I think that's incredible. But mostly as Indigenous, when we share platforms like this, and I know you acknowledged it in an earlier comment, we're also sharing grief. And they still do that. They still allow space for that in their work. And we always will. I always say there isn't going to be a single Indigenous public personality, celebrity that isn't also an advocate. We always will. There's so much work to do that we have to stay humble and keep balancing that work. And they do. They're beautiful young people. If you saw them back there, Dee Dee, that beautiful performer, so humble, but so talented. And it's exciting to see that.
Well, they had a beacon showing them the way in you. What an honor to meet you.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. Take care.
Okay.
We're going to head back out to Parliament Hill to the grounds for the moment because Jackie McKay, who was there throughout the whole ceremony, has someone with her. Jackie?
Thank you. So yeah, I have Lucien Wabanonik with me. He is a survivor and chief of his nation. He spoke today at the ceremony. There was a big crowd. What did it feel like when you looked out at that crowd today?
Well, emotional, I would say. And, you know, First Nation were there, of course. But I've seen a lot of Canadians wearing orange shirts. That was really something that felt good to me when I seen those, because I went to the market here downtown, and I've seen a lot of people, you know, Canadians wearing the orange shirt. This is something that's really, I think, moving for me. And of course, First Nation, when they see that, they really appreciate that. And I think reconciliation needs to be, as a whole, you know, as a society, I think we need to move, you know, ahead and one step at a time. And I'm hoping that things will happen, you know, in a good way for our both societies.
Yeah, it was great to see lots of children, lots of people who were Indigenous, non-Indigenous out in the crowd. Today, who are you thinking about?
Well, I was thinking about myself in terms of, you know, I never came out of that residential school. Even today, you know, the child in me never left the residential school. So we feel that. You can feel it when you have that, you know, burden to carry so many years. And this is something that people may not understand, but we try to explain them, you know, that we need support. We need the people, you know, to recognize. And reconciliation is one step that we can take as a whole, as Canadians, as First Nations, as a peoples. I think this is something that's really, you know, truth and reconciliation. We're going to speak about the truth, the past, even though it hurts. Difficult conversation, we need to have those. And I think we can learn from those experiences.
Is there action you want to see moving forward?
Of course, I'd like to see our nation having their land backs. That would be a great step in terms of reconciliation. Recognizing First Nations governments, recognizing the rights of our people, you know, the rights holders of this land, our First Nations. This is something that I think we should celebrate, simply because it is the truth, and we can reconcile all the interests of our peoples and the nations that live in this country.
Well, thank you so much for your words today, your words on stage, and sharing this with us. Really appreciate it. Adrienne, we'll go back to you.
Jackie, thanks very much. I want to bring in Nigan in here briefly. I have so much to ask you, but as we were listening to Susan Aglukark, I could feel you sort of nodding beside me. What is it that she said that connected with you?
Well, first of all, Susan and I are good friends, and so it's nice. I mean, my parents deeply loved her music. She was a big part of the TRC, so I saw her many times along the path. But, you know, the one thing that she spoke about was fear. And I think this is a day in which a lot of us who are intergenerational survivors, we have to confront some very difficult parts of our path. Part of that is inheriting the shame that came from those schools that our elders, our parents were taught that to be very ashamed of themselves. I think Canadians also feel some fear today because they are perhaps learning the first time or a very early part of their journey about some of the shame that this country really carries around the treatment of its most marginalized citizens. But the thing that I think you're hearing over and over and over again is that to encounter that shame, you have to be brave. You know, there's no template for reconciliation. There's no way that we've done this before. This is the very first time. And so we're without a net. We have to be able to be brave now.
Okay, Nigan, good thought. Thank you. I want to switch gears a little bit here because author David A. Robertson believes that the way to lay the foundation of change is through kids, which is why he has spent this day speaking with students in grades 4 through to grade 8 about residential schools. And His view is that storytelling is a key part of the journey towards reconciliation. You've heard so much of that today. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson is at the event in Toronto and has been speaking with students. Deanna?
Adrienne, I'm here with grade 6 student Alicia Chu. She is a big reader. She had some great questions that she asked famous author David A. Robertson. Alicia, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Alicia, tell me, what is it about David A. Robertson's books that tells you such an amazing, interesting story about what happened to kids in residential schools?
Well, the books of David A. Robertson send a big message about residential schools, because the more we know about them, the more we can stop what had happened in those residential schools. And so I think it's best that everyone has knowledge about that.
What a great answer. And you know, I'm always amazed when I talk to people your age that in many cases, you guys know more than your parents or grandparents did about this important part of Canada's history. But also his books are fun and show beauty and humor in Indigenous families as well, right? Talk to me, what's your favorite book?
My favorite book is, I think it's the first book of talking about the barren grounds. I think it's a very enticing fiction book. That it's about a girl and a boy. One of them knows a lot about the culture of their background, and one of them doesn't know much because they were took it into foster care, and then they never got to learn more about their culture, and it was like forgotten. And so in this journey that they had, they got to reconnect with their culture and learn more, and this journey felt like home for them.
What a great description. And tell me, one of the messages that several speakers today, including David A. Robertson, have said, included that he wants everybody to be proud of their culture. And I know that your family is of Chinese background. Your dad was just teaching me how to pronounce your last name properly. Tell me, Alicia, what does it mean to you when you hear David saying that you should be proud of who you are, of your ancestry? How have his books made you maybe look at your own background differently?
Well, in his books, as he was talking about, he was saying about how in those residential schools, they didn't respect what they were proud of, their culture, like the braids that made them strong, that they cut them off, and that made them sad because that was a part of them.
It made them proud, right?
Yeah. And after all that experience, they went back to cherish what they were proud of, and that they could be what they wanted to be and come back to who they really were. And that makes me want to be always proud of my culture. And I think his message is really great in his books.
A message for young Canadians of all backgrounds, this beautiful, diverse group of children in there. Alicia, thank you so much. You know, David said he wanted to be an author since he was 8 years old. Do you want to be an author?
Maybe.
I think you'd make a good one. Good journalist too, Adrienne. Back to you.
Hey, I'd vote for her. Alicia, make a good prime minister, as Deanna Sumanak-Johnson, and good on you, Alicia. We want to go to Saskatchewan next and bring you the stories for two women from who say they turned to powwow dancing this year as a way to reclaim their cultures. We're talking about Starless Star Blanket, who danced for the first time in nearly 50 years earlier this month, while Shelley Pinochet says she brought her grandchildren on her healing journey. Let's have a listen.
Motivation to dance was a memory that I had of the day that my dad died, or the day rather that we buried him. I closed my eyes for that moment. Creator allowed me to see my dad dancing into heaven. And he was dancing so hard that I knew in my heart one day I was going to dance too. I'm very proud of myself It was hard. I'm getting old. I feel broken, but I was proud. I do feel welcome there, and I do feel like I am home.
It's hard to be watched. I'll just put it that way. You know, it's hard. It's hard to be a performer. But when you actually get in there, oh, I can dance. I grew up without my culture. I grew up with some, but not a lot. It took me a little bit of time to really get the motivation within myself to say it's okay. It's okay to put it on. It's okay to look like an Indian. It's okay to look beautiful. No matter what age you are, that it's okay to start. I want everybody to dance. I don't feel lost anymore.
This is amazing. All right, so let's go back out to Jackie McKay with a final thought. What are you thinking, Jackie?
Well, it was a really powerful ceremony, and I think you could see that in the crowd. I think one of the most powerful moments was when people were bringing moccasins and shoes onto the stage, and you could see people breaking down. I think that moment really got to people, that physical representation, and also just being together, the resilience. And there was talked about on stage, not to be alone in sharing the burden. I think talking to people today, watching people hug and talk to each other, you could really see that. And I think that is what people wanted today to be together and lean on each other.
Jackie, thank you. It's been wonderful to see you and great working with you today. Appreciate that. And Nigana, a last thought from you, although I feel like I could talk to you for hours about this. What are you walking away from today with?
You know, every survivor, every elder is a library, is an entire archive of the history of this country, the good, the bad, the great, the ugly, and we saw much of that beauty today, but we also heard some very difficult stories. But we're also running out of time. Many of the people you saw today are not they're younger because we are losing survivors at a record rate. And that means we have to move now, and we have to bring truth, justice, and implement the 94 calls right away. We have to not wait. We can't acquiesce to fear or fear of making a mistake or stumbling, because we have to climb the mountain together, and we'll see things that we've never seen before.
Think your dad would be proud of this day?
Oh, he would have the crooked finger out.
Uh-oh,
be
wagging
telling
it
you,
out.
Get up, get up, get up, get busy.
Get busy. Okay, listen, thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to see you, to hear the stories you carry and the memories you carry of your dad, and thank you for sharing him with us for all these years, and I don't think we'll ever let that go.
Take the love and the moment of what happened today, and then take it tomorrow. Can we wear an orange shirt tomorrow?
Yeah, why not? Why not? All right, Nigan Sinclair, thank you very, very much. So that is it for us here on this National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. The commemorations are, of course, continuing, big ones, small ones, right across the country. And no matter where you are or how you're marking this day, children are necessarily at the heart of it. This journey towards reconciliation, it started with little ones and the horrible things they endured, and it will be carried forward by the kids of today, that they are now learning the truths not taught for so long. Gives many people hope for the future. Much to do still to carve a better path forward, but much is underway. We thank you, wherever you are, for being with us. Take care.
Like a thief in the night, they come and take our love. Maybe I'm born with a curse, or maybe I'm less than a sideways glance, so I must be made of sin. Oh, I must be made of sin. And as a child, I dreamt through each night, your arms too far to embrace. May the light from your eyes never fade away. I am making, I need you now. Like a thief in the night, they come and take our love. Maybe we're born with a curse, or maybe we're less than a sideways glance, so we must be made of sin. must be made a sin.